We've just had the debate on the closure of the Myuna Bay Sport and Rec Centre. I was very pleased that the Minister made himself available and debated this issue. This is an issue that is really of great concern to the local community. I'm very hopeful that we get a good result out of this. No promises, but I'll continue to work on it.
March 29, the day the Premier announced her new cabinet, and only days before the government would come out of caretaker mode, the Office of Sport in a morning raid directed that the Myuna Bay Sport and Recreation Centre would close and that all visitors and staff were to be off-site by 6 p.m. And Speaker, as I said to the CEO of the Office of Sport, Matt Miller, who made the decision, the action and the way it was done was breathtaking in its arrogance. And with a new government and a minister who's here with us today, only days away, the decision was extremely audacious. This action, Mr Speaker, was taken on the basis of a risk assessment prepared by Origin Energy on the Eraring Power Station dam wall. There was no immediate threat to anyone. Mr Speaker, they based their assessment on a 5.7 magnitude seismic event, but to try and get a handle on what that means, Geoscience Australia assessed the likelihood of a 5.9 magnitude event within a 100 kilometre radius of Eraring is a 1 in 5,000 years or greater event, not just a low risk, an extremely low risk. Mr Miller took an action that upturned the lives of employees who were, in my opinion, treated disgracefully. Full-time and permanent employees would be looked after with special leave provided and redeployments to other centres being used where possible, while long-standing, loyal and well-used casual staff were largely just collateral damage. A few weeks of pay, then on their own. Well, Mr Speaker, not good enough. Mr Speaker, Frank Calabria is the CEO of Origin Energy and therefore doesn't escape criticism. Origin were left hanging when on the day of the closure they released a media statement thanking the Office of Sport for acting expediently on their request to have the centre closed. Wow, I have to say I'm pretty sure they expected a never to arrive public statement from the Office of Sport owning up to this. Origin had forecast to me some months earlier that they may need to look at relocating the tennis courts and swimming pool, but there was no indication that the so-called nuclear option was on the table. Mr Speaker, for the record, during the time Origin Energy was considering the risk to the integrity of this wall, they had before the Department of Planning an application to increase the ash holding capacity of the dam. The Minister is here and I recognise that this blindsided yourself. After all, even the head of the Department of Premier and Cabinet wasn't advised that this was happening. We are, however, looking to you for the right result for our community and for your staff, and that's not lightly acceding to Origin Energy's request to mitigate their risk at the expense of a greatly loved community asset. The way in which this was planned and executed by the Office of Sport and Origin Energy will remain a disgrace and should stand as an example of arrogance toward and disrespect of government process and of staff and community.
The impact of this decision on the local community is not lost on this government. Not only is Myuna Bay a recreational hub for community groups and schools, but it's also an employer and source of livelihood for its locals. This government wants to ensure it has the most well-informed, expert and independent advice before any permanent decisions are made about Myuna Bay Sports and Recreational Centre's future. This is why I announced that an independent review of the technical reports that inform the decision to close the centre would be undertaken. No further decisions will be made until the review is finalised. Mr Speaker, we've requested the New South Wales Dams Safety Committee to lead this review. I give my assurance to the House here today and to the local community that the review will be totally independent and will guide any future decisions made.
The reality is, when Origin purchased this site, they always wanted the sport and recreation camp. They in fact, at the time of the purchase, got Treasury to approach the Office of Sport to buy it. So there's a huge range of scepticism here that now this very Office of Sport, when the issue of dam safety has come out, has independently taken a decision and closed the sport and recreation camp without any referral to the actual government agency that is empowered to ask questions and by law to receive answers, empowered to hold inquiries and by law seize documents to decide on the safety of this dam. Now, none of that's happened.
As this closure occurred during the caretaker period of government before the state election, the first I heard of the closure was actually on our local radio station on the Central Coast. Upon hearing of the closure, it resonated with me because I know that the Sport and Recreation Centre is highly valued by the surrounding community. It is of course frightening to think that the safety of people using the Myuna Bay Sport and Recreation Centre could be at risk. As per Origin Energy's advice, I also want to acknowledge the hard work of my parliamentary colleague, the member for Lake Macquarie, and the work he's done at obtaining 20,000 signature petition. It goes to show how strongly both he and his community feel regarding this issue.
Under the Dam Safety Act, the inquiry that has been announced should actually be held in public. This is something that is of much concern to members of the community. People really want to know the answers about why this has happened.